with us. Now, we move to session 2, Brazilian flora and its potential uses in Ayurveda. Session 2 will be presented by Dr. Margarete Mota. Margaret ma'am is a naturopath and Ayurveda therapist.
Just a minute. Just a minute. Meera.
Sir.
To all the participants, I'm sorry to interrupt. To all the participants here, thank you, Dr. Chaitrika, for nice presentation.
Thank you.
Is there any questions regarding your Dr. Chaitrika's presentation? Due to time constraint, please post the questions in the chat group. We will mark it and we shall discuss in the last part of our session. So please understand that because of the time constraint, we are not putting discussion on questions regarding doubts. Please post in the chat group. We will note it down and we will discuss about in the last session, after the last session. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Please continue.
Now we move on to session 2, Brazilian flora and its potential uses in Ayurveda. Session 2 will be presented by Dr. Margarete Mota. Margaret ma'am is a naturopath and Ayurveda therapist. She has scripted, produced and directed the documentary Ayurveda, A Possible Cure, which is the first Latin American documentary on Ayurveda. Ma'am is an organizer of Latin American Ayurveda Conference and director of ESA. Ma'am has done her post-graduation in clinical phytotherapy. She's also a master's student in chemical biology. Ma'am is a researcher at CEE, Center for Ethnobotanical and Ethnopharmacological Studies, and at Brazilian Academic Consortium of Integrative Health. We extend a proud welcome to you, ma'am. You may now start your session, ma'am.
Namaste, everyone. Am I audible and visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, can I share the screen?
Yes, please, ma'am.
So first of all, I would like to thank all the organizer for this opportunity. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here. And especially I'd like to thank Dr. Ajay sir for the invitation. And my humble pranam to all my gurus, to all my teachers, and to my ancestors. And my humble pranam to Krishna Kumarji. Om Shri Guru Vyo Namaha. Well, to speak about Brazilian flora, it's quite a task because it's quite a huge subject. So I brought here a little bit of information, a little bit of discussion on the subject. And the other thing that we here in Brazil, Ayurveda therapists, always discuss about is we have a huge flora. And why don't we exploit more, don't we use more our native flora in our work of Ayurveda? So as it was presented, I am a researcher in the CE, it's the Center for Ethnobotanical and Ethnopharmacology Studies from the State University from São Paulo. And we are a group of researchers, of scientists from different areas. And I am the first one that worked with Ayurveda. So it has been quite interesting to work with this group and bringing the approach of Ayurveda, how we see the plants, how we understand this relationship of human beings and the plants. And in this research group, we work with something that is new in Brazil. I don't know if it's new in other parts of the world, but it's what we call participatory ethnobotany. That means that we work with the people that have the knowledge, and they are the protagonists, not the researcher, but the people that hold this knowledge. So I think it's something similar to what Dr. Vinod Kumar Sir said about the work that they did with the Kani tribe and the work that they do at the botanical garden. And this is the idea that we have in the future, that if we develop any kind of medicine or any kind of product, that this knowledge holders, that they can get the royalties for it. So the Brazilian flora has been studied for quite a long time by different groups, many groups from Europe, and many German scientists, German researchers have been studying in the 17th, 18th, 19th century. But there is one that I would like to bring our attention to. That's the work of von Martius, that was a German scientist. He was a doctor and a botanist and a naturalist. And he worked on a compendium called Flora Brasiliensis. That was the first one that we have noticed in Brazil. And it's so important that until today it's relevant, not only for the Brazilian flora, but also for the flora in South America, because we have very similar flora in many different countries here. And it was a group of researchers. There were more than 65 German naturalists. And also there were people from other countries that came with when Brazil was still a colony, and came with the Empress. And they worked here for a few years, and they covered about 10,000 kilometers of the Brazilian region. And they could identify more than 22,000 species. This whole work was compiled in 15 volumes, very big volumes of books, and divided in 40 parts, and we're talking about more than 10,000 pages of information. And this book has been, work has been so important. As I said, it's still important for the Brazilian flora nowadays. And we have more recent work that has been quite a task for many scientists in Brazil. That's what we call the Brazilian Flora Project. It's called Brazilian Flora 2020 Project. So from 2010 to 2015, we're talking about 5 years, more than 400 Brazilian and foreign taxonomists worked on what we call the Brazilian list. That is working on identifying in different regions of Brazil what are the plants, not only plants, also fungi and algae in these different regions. In 2016, when they had already finished the Brazilian list, then they started this project called Brazilian Flora. That's a huge project. That's its own ongoing project. Now, at the moment, there are more than 900 scientists working on it, also scientists from different parts of the country. And this work also has been interesting because they work on a platform that the knowledge is shared on real time, and people can be in different parts of the world and working on the same project. And there is the collaboration of many botanical gardens from different parts of the world. And the most important and probably the most beautiful botanical garden in Brazil is the Rio Botanical Garden. That's the botanical garden that is responsible for this project here in Brazil. So to date, that means last night, more than 50,000 species of Brazilian flora has been recognized by this project. We're talking about native plants, some cultivated, and some that are naturalized. And it's an ongoing project. So every day when you check, sometimes there is one new plant that has been added. And for anyone that's interested in knowing or studying or understanding a little bit the Brazilian flora, you can check on the site. It's available in different languages, Portuguese, Spanish, French, German, English, and other languages. And here you have the link where you can go and check the work that has been done, that is going on. Also, if you want to know about the Flora Brasiliensis, this very important work too, this same project, now they created the Flora Brasiliensis work online. So you can access the work, you can access all this information online. It's also in English. So it's Portuguese, Spanish, and English. So here you have the link if you have curiosity to understand what species were studied, what relevant work had been done, and also what's going on now with this Brazilian Flora project. As you know, Brazil is a huge country, and we have different biomes. We have actually 6 different biomes. And here in this image, we have 3 numbers in each one of these colored biomes. The first number, we're talking about the number of species in this biome. The second, we're talking about the number of endemic species on this biome. And the last one is the number of the percentage of endemism in each biome. As you can see, the Amazon biome is the biggest in Brazil. And surprisingly, when we look at the number of species, it's 13,000, a little bit more than 13,000. And then when you look, for example, in a smaller biome, that the other green biome here, this one here, that's called Mata Atlântica, that's compared to the Amazon is quite small. It has more, it has a bigger number of species. Could be because of 2 reasons. One, because this smaller biome here, that's on the coast from north to south of Brazil and a little bit inside the country, is the most populated area, and it's the most studied biome. And still there are many plants that we don't know that are there. So these are the number that we have studied, more than 19,000. And probably what happens in the Amazon biome is because of the characteristics of this biome, very dense forest, very difficult access. So most probably there are many, certainly there are many plants that we haven't studied yet, that we haven't get to know it yet. And each of these biomes, they have different characteristics. The first biome, the biggest, that's the Amazon rainforest biome. It covers almost 50% of the country, and it is part of also Bolivia, Peru, Ecuador, and other countries. But the biggest part of the Amazon rainforest is in Brazil. And then we have another one that's called Cerrado, that it's similar to a savanna. And it's a small, much smaller biome. It's less than 24% of our territory. And Mata Atlântica, the one that goes from south to north to south on the coast, is only 13% of the Brazilian territory. And 95% it's in the Brazilian territory. And we share this biome with Uruguay and Argentina too. And then we have one biome that's called Caatinga. This is a very interesting biome because it happens only in Brazil, exclusively Brazilian biome. And the plants that we have in this area doesn't occur in any other part of Brazil and in any other part of the planet. Then we have another biome that's quite small, that's called Pampa, that's in the south. Also, we share the same biome, same characteristic with Argentina and Uruguay. It's only 2.1% of our territory. And we have another biome that's also very tiny, that is the Pantanal. That is, it's a region that is flooded in a period of time in the year. Unfortunately, this year, as you probably have heard in the news, this biome, it got quite a lot destroyed because of wildfires. We had lots of wildfires in the Amazon too. But in the case of this biome, it's a total disaster because it's a very, very small biome. And the plants and the animals that we find in this region, many of them we cannot find in other parts. And a big part of it was destroyed with the fire. We don't know what's going to happen, how the nature is going to recover, how long it's going to take to recover. And here there is a comparison of the size of the countries, some of this mega diverse countries. In territory, Brazil is the biggest, and when we think about also number of species, this is from 2010, with this Brazilian Flora project, we realized that we have many more species than what is here in this work from GIAM from 2010. But even in 2010, we could realize that the number of species in Brazil, we have more species in Brazil than any other part of the world. And also we have the biggest number of endemic species. And the percentage of endemism is also high, 56%. We have other countries like Australia and Papua New Guinea that they have much more endemic species. So we have here some plants that what we call plants that are easily available in Brazil. That means that are plants that they are either they were either brought by immigrants or they are native from Brazil, but they're common to India too. So these are plants that are used in Ayurveda. So we know the Rasa, Vida, Vipaka and Guna of these plants. So for people that work with Ayurveda in Brazil, it's very easy to work with these plants because then we have all this information in the classics and in the Ayurveda literature. Here in this lecture, I don't bring all of them. I brought about 30 something. We have many more than this. So curcuma longa, Hydrocotyl umbellata, Eclipta alba, aloe vera, Corus calamus, cinnamon, coriander, cumin. All of this, it's very easily available in Brazil. Brazil has a characteristic of having a climate very similar to many parts in India. So even plants that were brought by the immigrants, by the Portuguese and other people from India and also from Africa, and of course from the European immigrants, it can very easily grow here because Brazil, it's very big and we have different climates in different regions. So it's very easy for plants that are brought here to adapt, to adjust to the Brazilian climate and to grow very easily. And here we have some more that's also very easily available in Brazil, and we can find mainly anywhere in the country from north to south. And we have some here that are very dear to Ayurveda, like Sida cordifolia and Zinziber, that it's also everywhere. Actually, it's a plant that is everywhere in the planet, literally. And we have like Funiculum vulgare, Trigonella, Solano negro. We have many these plants that we have a lot of studies and a lot of literature available in Ayurveda. And here we have some more, like castor oil tree. That's also another one that we can find it from east to west and north to south in Brazil, and it's a very important plant also for us to work. Neem has been brought to Brazil recently. I mean, few decades ago. It was not here for a long time, but also it grew very well. Actually, neem became a problem for Brazil in certain regions because many of the insects in certain regions that were common in that particular region, when they started growing neem trees, these insects disappeared. And because of the climate, and so the neem tree goes very well here in Brazil. And we have all these other that are very common and very important, like Piper nigrum and Philanthus niruri and Punica granatum. Nutmeg we don't have in Brazil, but when we say that we have here is because we can mainly import it and use it, something very common, easily available. And we have also these different, I put two different varieties here, but we have more varieties of Cantana, Bauhinia variegata, and Bauhinia forficata. It's very, very common also everywhere in Brazil. We can find the bitter gourd or Carella or Momordica, Tarantia. So even for medicine or as vegetable for food, people in Brazil are not very keen of eating bitter gourd because people think that's just to be used as medicine. But because of the Asian immigrants, like the Chinese, that they also use it, and some Koreans, and sometimes the Japanese immigrants they use. So when you have regions in Brazil that we have a bigger number of Asian immigrants, then we have also the use of bitter gourd as food. And as I said in the beginning, this is a question that everyone that work with Ayurveda in Brazil keep on asking. So is it sustainable that we keep on importing plants from India? Does it make sense that to work with Ayurveda in Brazil, we keep on importing the medicines from India or the plants from India? Wouldn't it make more sense if we could study our herbs, our plants, with this Ayurveda approach and use them in our practice, use them as medicine, use them on a daily basis in our practice in the clinic? And this is a question that many Ayurveda therapists in Brazil have been asking. And I don't know if you ever heard about how many indigenous groups we have in Brazil. We have in Brazil more than 300 indigenous groups. So when we talk about Brazilian traditional medicine, we cannot talk in singular. We always have to talk in plural because we have many indigenous groups. In all of them, they have different uses for plants, and also because Brazil is very vast, and they have in different biomes, different plants, and they have different uses for it. It can be a use as a medicine to be used orally or to be a topic use, to be applied in different ways. And also they use it like more in a spiritual way, like the shaman doing some ritual with different medicines and healing the people with this ritual using specific medicines. And we also have another important group of knowledge here that are the Afro-Brazilians, the African descendants that came from different parts of Africa, and also they brought a huge knowledge of the uses of their plants, either for their rituals and also for as medicine, and using in their communities, and also learning, exchanging knowledge with the indigenous people here in Brazil. So we have this vast knowledge of these traditional groups. And also have another group that is what we call river dwellers. These are people that they are probably European descendants or African descendants, or sometimes they are descendants from indigenous groups, but they live by the rivers. Brazil has many rivers, and mainly in the north region, in the Amazon, and also in the northeast of Brazil. So the people that live by the rivers, they also many times they didn't have access to allopathy and to hospitals, or they were too far away from the cities, and they had to learn how to take care of their health and cure themselves and their communities using the plants that they had there. So these people are called ribeirinhos. That means they live by their river dwellers. And also there are many parts of Brazil that you cannot get anywhere unless you fly or you go by the river. So there is also vast knowledge that this group of people acquired in their lives about the medicinal plants and the uses of it on a daily basis. And with all this knowledge that we have accumulated in Brazil from different ethnic groups and different traditional group, we kept on asking ourselves here, does it make sense that as Ayurveda students and Ayurveda practitioners, that we keep on importing plants from India or importing medicines from India? Is it sustainable for India? Probably not. If we have the whole planet importing plants from India or importing the medicines from India, there will be a point that I think is quite near to it, that's not going to be sustainable to India. We're going to put a lot of pressure, and also doesn't make sense because if we understand that we should use for food and for medicine what is around us. So India is very far from Brazil. So it makes more sense that we use what we have here. So there is this group of people in Brazil, Ayurveda therapists and students, with this view that we should study more our own herbs, our own plants, and use them in our practice. And always the difficulty is we don't have the plants that have been studied yet. How do you understand what's the guna, virya, vipaka? And then I made the same question to Dr. Vinod Kumar, sir, when I met him in 2019 in Trivandrum. And then he told me, I have heard it from Krishna Kumarji, and also then Dr. Vinod Kumar, sir, told me, you go back and you study with your indigenous people. You study with the people that have the knowledge of the traditional medicine in your country. They will know it. So this is what we have been doing, and in this research group that I'm part of, this is the kind of work that we do. We work directly with the people that have this traditional knowledge for medicines and our plants, and they are the protagonists, and we learn with them. So last year, one of my students in the university was having the same question, and she was saying, so we use a lot ashwagandha here, and we don't have ashwagandha in Brazil. So what could be the plant that could perhaps be similar to ashwagandha in its actions, or in guna, virya, vipaka, and that we could substitute, we could use our own plant. So we work on this research, and we had many, about 10 plants actually that we were studying, and then we came down, the whole thing boiled down to 4 plants. These 4 plants that are here, they are Brazilian native plants, because we wanted to work only, to research only the native plants, not the exotic plants, not the plants that have been brought to Brazil. So the whole study, the research boiled down to these 4 plants, that is Phaphia paniculata, that's also called the Brazilian ginseng, Trichyla catigua, that's called catuaba. The word catuaba is an indigenous word because it's used by the indigenous people. And then we have Heteropteris aphrodisiaca, that's called nó de cachorro in Portuguese. And we have another one that is Petalum holocoides, that's Marapuama. Marapuama is another word that's from indigenous language, that because it's used by the indigenous people. So we went on the whole year studying these 4 plants and seeing the similarities. We didn't have any, we couldn't find any studies that would talk about the virya, vipaka, gunas of these plants. So we started thinking about, okay, how can we understand them from the perspective of the chemistry or their actions? So these plants, that are here, they have, many of them have many similarities to the therapeutic uses of ashwagandha. And from these 4 plants, when we started boiling it down a little bit more, researching a little bit deeper, the one that was more in therapeutic uses, more similar to ashwagandha, was the fafia, the Brazilian ginseng that's used the rhizome, the roots. And this is a plant that we have also in many parts of Brazil in different biomes. And it's a plant that's very much used by our indigenous people also, and by these other traditional healers and traditional medicine people that use also this plant. So if you look here on this chart, when you have this plus, it means it has the same therapeutic use as ashwagandha. So when we look at the Fafia paniculata, it's like same like ashwagandha. There is this adaptogen use. It's tonic. It's aphrodisiac. It's a tonic for the nervous system, central nervous system. Used also as a rasayana. It's anti-inflammatory, anti-anemic, analgesic, a little bit less analgesic than the other ones. It's used for stress, when people are very stressed. This is one of the plants that they use. And there is an important action on the central nervous system and also in the reproductive system. So we are trying to find the studies on how to identify the guna, vidya, rasa, vipaka of these plants, and we didn't find. And it's interesting to know that we have in Brazil more than 300 indigenous groups. And they have, like I said before, they have different approach, different uses for the plants, and they have different plants depending on the region that they are. And it's amazing to think that from more than 300 indigenous groups, we had more. Some simply disappear, unfortunately, but remaining we have actually 305 indigenous groups. Only 17 of these groups, their medicine, their plants have been studied. The uses that they give to the plants, either in ritual or as medicine, has been studied. And from the 17 that has been studied, only 2 has been studied by Brazilian researchers. 15 has been studied by foreigners, and all this knowledge, it's not in Brazil. It has been taken out of Brazil. So this is another reason why we have this need to study our own medicinal plants, to study with our indigenous people, to understand the use that they give to these plants, either in rituals or as medicines, and also that we give some pressure to our government to understand that studying our native herbs, our native plants, is very important. We have a very important book, a very important document in Brazil that's the Brazilian Floracopia. We're now in the 5th edition. And if we compare the first edition of the Brazilian Floracopia and the last edition, we see that as the time passes and a new edition comes, less and less and less native Brazilian plants are in the Brazilian Floracopia. Then we start thinking, how can it make sense? If you're studying Brazilian Floracopia, why don't you give more emphasis? Why don't we give more attention to the Brazilian native plants instead of the exotic plants that have been brought here? So this is another question that we keep on asking and keep on pressuring our government to give more attention to it. So these are the 4 plants that we boiled down when we were studying the therapeutic uses of ashwagandha compared to therapeutic uses of Brazilian native plants. So on left up is the Brazilian ginseng called Fafia paniculata. On the right here, we have nó de cachorro, that's Heteropteris aphrodisiac. Down left, we have Marapuama. And down right, we have Catuaba. So the first two, we use the roots or the rhizome. Marapuama, we use everything. We use the bark, we use the root, we use the leaves, and Catuaba, we mainly use the bark. So Brazil is a huge country and it's a mega diverse country. And still, we feel that there is very little that we know. This Brazilian project, Brazilian Flora project, is very important, and I'm really grateful that there are all the scientists involved in studying it. It's an ongoing project, because till we study everything is going to take, I think, many generations. But I'm very glad and really happy that we have started. And as I said, also Brazil is it's very diverse, not only in our biodiversity when you think about animals and plants and fungi and algae, but also in people. Like I said, Brazilian indigenous groups are many, and when you talk about Brazilian traditional medicine, we have to take into consideration each and every indigenous group, because they have very different uses and different plants and different knowledge that has been accumulated. And here I put some, of the groups, some of the indigenous groups, just representing some of them. And also we can see here in these images in the center, what we call quilombolas. Quilombolas are the Afro-Brazilians, the Afro-descendants that were brought to Brazil as a slave. And they were brought from different parts of Africa and also different ethnic groups. So they also have had a very diverse understanding, a very diverse knowledge of the use of medicinal plants. Some of the plants that they found here were similar or the same plants they had in Africa, and others, they were plants that they got in contact when they got here. And of course, as slaves, they had no rights whatsoever, so they had to take care of themselves with what they had around them, what the plants they had around them. And they also have a huge knowledge accumulated, and we have a lot to learn with them too. And here on the right, I put someone representing also the two people here, representing the immigrants, who have also a lot of knowledge that was brought from different countries, from Asia, from the Middle East, from different countries in Europe. They also brought the knowledge, and also many times they brought the plants. They brought seeds, or they brought the plant itself, and adapted to Brazil, and they started using and also studying the ones that grew here. So when we talk about Brazilian medicines, traditional medicine, we have to take into consideration all this knowledge, all these different groups that have so much knowledge to share with us. And I'd like very much to thank all these people for preserving the nature as they do, and to doing a very sustainable use of the plants and other sources from the nature, and also for healing us in many different ways, not only with the plants, but they also, all these people, they also have usually knowledge of spiritual healing, to do some kind of healing that they use the plants, and it doesn't need to be ingested or doesn't need to be applied on the body, but they can do some ritual, some practice, some prayers, and also heal us with in this way. So I would like to to conclude my presentation here with my deepest gratitude to the plants, to the herbs, and to all sources of medicines that the nature give us, and also my humble pranam and gratitude to all these indigenous people, all the quilombolas, everyone that have this knowledge of the uses of resources from nature to cure us and to keep the planet alive. And it's very important that we continue studying with them, that we continue learning with them, and more than ever, that we give value to the knowledge that they have. Here in Brazil, unfortunately, the predominant system is the Western system of medicine, is allopathy. And many times this kind of knowledge is treated as, you know, like it's not important, it's not relevant, or it doesn't make any sense, and etc. But as we are living now this moment of coronavirus, we have seen that in many situations the Western medicine doesn't have the answer, and many times the answer for Western medicine comes from the natural world, comes from nature. As we know, synthetic medicine have been first produced from plants, from resources from nature. So my gratitude to all these people for keeping the planet alive, for keeping the knowledge alive, for healing us, and for teaching us how to relate to our own health, to the planet, and to the natural world around us. And here I keep the references that I use for the presentation, and also I think it's interesting for anyone that would like to understand a little bit about the Brazilian plant list, about this project Brazil Flora 2020, or about the Flora Brasiliensis, or about any research on Brazilian biodiversity. These are the places to research. And also the Rio Botanical Garden, that's the biggest botanical garden in Brazil, and the most beautiful, the oldest, the biggest and the most beautiful. And they have very interesting projects, and it's one of the partners in this Brazil Flora project. And here also I keep the information from where I got about the plants that I used in Brazil, very easily available, and also that we find all this information about